Hello everyone, my name is Xavier Carter, and today I will be presenting on a topic that is among the hot topics of youth: the influence of social media over the antisocial behavior in tertiary students. This presentation will explore the primary social influences on antisocial behaviors and the typical antisocial behaviors and how these behaviors can be addressed. The evidence cited in this research paper is in favor of the strongest social pressures towards antisociality. Among them is, above all, the enormity of social media itself, which has completely reorganized tertiary students' ways of socializing and behaving. Particularly widespread utilization of these media and consequent exposure to illegal and improper content are described as major temptations to students towards violent and antisocial behavior. Aside from the platform, social media and peer pressure are also cited as being causative factors in the sense that students are emulating antisocial or aggressive behavior due to the fact that peer consensus says they must. Finally, system problems such as a lack of control of social media websites and inadequate parental or guardian monitoring are to blame for the causation and maintenance of antisocial behavior. The relationships between these variables produce a complex social pressure that influences student behavior. This slide provides us with the definitive answers to the most common antisocial behaviors in the case of new social influence, i.e. social media. The research results as provided based on a study of 220 students validate a list of risk behaviors. Violence, sexual misconduct, and addiction to drugs are the most common antisocial behaviors the participants identified. This would mean that the site not only becomes a destination for such old-fashioned cybercrimes as cyberbullying, but also a venue for enabling offline antisociality in the long term. Furthermore, extensive usage in the dissemination of falsehood and dishonesty is something troubling when one considers the place of social media in ethics and honesty among the learners. Academic dishonesty, rule-breaking, norm-breaking attitudes also reflect the way attitudes in the information age are adapted to the university environment. Such behaviors also help to justify the research finding that social media is a detriment of antisocial behavior. The most critical finding is the significant positive relationship between social media use and antisocial behavior, leading to the rejection of the null hypothesis, H01. This empirical evidence supports the study's primary objective of scrutinizing this relationship. Furthermore, the study found that the overall impact of contributory factors to antisocial behavior such as peer influence and exposure to online aggression is high. Interestingly, when assessing the difference between genders in using social media for online harassment, the study concluded there were no significant differences between male and female students. This finding challenges some prior research and suggests online harassment may be a gender-neutral issue in this cohort. Finally, in terms of the platform engagement, the data revealed that WhatsApp is the most used platform ahead of YouTube and Instagram, indicating a focus on instant messaging and video content. This slide addresses the crucial question of what can be done to reduce or eliminate antisocial behavior stemming from social influences, particularly social media. The study explicitly recommends organizing campaigns and workshops to create widespread awareness concerning responsible social media usage and the severe consequences of antisocial behavior. This is a direct response to the identified factor of lack of awareness. Crucially, the recommendations extend beyond the individual student to include the community and family, emphasizing the need for inadequate parental or guardian supervision to be addressed. The overall goal is to foster a healthier and more conducive digital environment for higher education students. The research findings, which established a significant relationship between social media use and antisocial behavior, are intended to inform the development of effective interventions and policies. By focusing on educational, policy, and supervisory interventions, there is a path towards cultivating positive online conduct. My reflection begins with the confirmation of a concept often discussed anecdotally: the link between social media and negative conduct. The study provided solid empirical support for the media effects theory, clearly demonstrating that prolonged engagement with these platforms fuels antisocial behavior among this age group. What was most significant to me, however, was the finding on the broad manifestations of antisocial behavior. Prior to reading the article, my focus would have been on issues like cyberbullying or online harassment. The data, however, revealed that behaviors like violence, sexual misconduct, and substance abuse were among the most prevalent, underscoring a much more serious societal issue where online exposure may be influencing dangerous real-world behaviors. Finally, the platform usage data was a key learning point. I was surprised to find WhatsApp was the most used platform, followed by YouTube and Instagram. This suggests that the dynamics of antisocial behavior need to be analyzed within the context of private, highly utilized messaging apps as much as, or even more than, public-facing platforms. The most surprising statistical finding was the uncovering of gender neutrality in harassment online. The study categorically eliminated the hypothesis that there was a threshold gender difference among female and male students with regard to utilizing social media to facilitate online harassment. This was directly contrary to earlier studies that had the potential to conclude that there were a gender difference in some aspect of online antisociality. This has real-world implications. Any intervention or policy that tries to stop this behavior or harassment will need to be gender neutral if it's going to work, since this tendency to exhibit this behavior appears to be inherent even in female and male students within the student population. Lastly, I was surprised to discover that academic dishonesty was one of the more prevalent antisocial behaviors. This means that social networking habit of evil is not limited to a social life, but rather on the path of destroying academic integrity. Finally, the continuously high-weighted mean in all the contributory factors, including exposure to hate speech and violence on the internet and overpressure and expectations, indicates the intrusion into the tainted atmosphere of the internet. It ultimately establishes that the facilitative conditions in antisocial behavior are broad and strong. In summary, this research gives unmistakable evidence that the correlation between social media use and tertiary students' antisocial behavior is robust and complex. The spread of violence, sexual harassment, and the dissemination of lies is evidence that the effect is too much social media exposure is severe. The research was able to determine the causative factors and laid out definitively what intervention would be needed by determining the need for reversing peer influence and poor supervision. Finally, the implications serve as much needed clarion call to all the stakeholders, including educators, policymakers, and parents, to recognize the dangers and act collectively in order to craft a digital environment that eschews the harms while still enabling the students to enjoy the benefits of social media. In the future, institutions must not only focus on social welfare, but also seek specific methods to counteract the role of social media in shaping such behaviors as academic dishonesty.